Welcome back. You're now watching the County Diary, where we update on what is happening in different parts of the country, across as well as here in the city. And even before we look into this story that was filed by Chichi Josephine, an update from Gabon, where a section of military leaders have appeared on a national television in Gabon to say they are attempting to take power. This comes after the announcement of the incumbent President Ali Bongo being announced as the winner of the recent held elections. Remember, Ali Bongo came into power in 2009 after the death of his dad, Omar, who had served for 42 years. It is a developing story that we'll continue following up on. But right now, let us have a look at this story, where with a growing movement towards safe food production, healthy lifestyles, and the climate change mitigation strategies, farming options are increasingly leaning towards ecology, a farming approach that farmers from Nyanza region have embraced. Our very own Chichi Josephine tells us more of Evelyn Okoth from Kisumu, a farmer who believes in the model of sustainable farming and has embraced agroecology. Take a look.
A drive through villages in Nyando, Kisumu County tells a story, that of communities who eat from the land. Even today, farming is a major economic activity. Farmers here mainly grow maize, sorghum, millet, and cassava. At Agoro East Village, 35-year-old Evelyn Okoth is a busy bee at her farm, attending to her crops and poultry. Hers is a different kind of farming. From the get, a portion on the right has sweet potato vines, intercropped with different indigenous maize varieties. On this section, Okoth practices vermiculture, an agroecological method of using earthworms in processing vermin compost and liquid fertilizer, also known as vermin juice.
The cow dung, the waste, I use them to the vermiculture production, and there is when I will get the manure, the compost, the vermicompost, that I again return to the farm. Then the leachate from the vermicompost I spray to my vegetables and plants.
An agroecological champion, Miss Okoth is well known in her village and beyond for her passion in conserving traditional food and seeds. She is part of the founders of Kabodi Agoro Community Seed Bank, which brings together 25 members who save and exchange various indigenous seeds.
I think the women is just lacking maybe know-how, how they can go through this agriculture.
These women have conserved over 62 varieties of beans, about 5 varieties of millet, sorghum, 23 varieties. And we are seeing that this is really helping in terms of mitigating climate change risks.
At her farm, she multiplies 67 different varieties of beans, as well as 10 varieties of sorghum, some of which she obtained from the National Gene Bank and others from locals.
And I'm also doing another crop that is sorghum. They're of different. Some I got from the Gene Bank of Kenya, some I got from farmers. And these farmers are the older farmers that they used to plant on earlier days.
Her journey towards agroecological agriculture dates back in 2018, when she first interacted with officials from the Alliance, Biodiversity and International Center for Tropical Agriculture, CIAT.
Agroecology is really benefiting me. I've never gone to the agrovet to buy any medicine so that I can spray here. I'm not using chemicals. I'm not using fertilizers. I'm just using organic things that I'm producing in my farm.
Agroecology produce different food types that are important for diets, for improving the diets. It makes stronger children with more micronutrient, more balanced diets.
From her vegetable garden, Okoth earns about 250 shillings daily. In her fish pond, she keeps 1,000 fish at a time and sells after every 8 months between 200 shillings and 250 shillings each. At the time of our visit, she had 600 3-days-old chicks, which she would rear for 4 months and sell at up to 1,000 shillings each.
I'm counting 250 per day vegetables, but on seeds it is different because I'm also working on seeds and I'm working on the vegetables. And on fish also it is different because I'm harvesting after 8 months.
Like many farmers, her main challenge is lack of water, especially in the wake of climate change and strained rainfall patterns. Her dream is to one day have an irrigation system to be able to optimize production even during dry seasons.
I'm working in an area that we don't have adequate rainfall. So I'm having challenges of water. Like now you can just see my vegetables are drying up.
Through the Nature Positive Initiative, Miss Okoth is among farmers from Kisumu who have trained on permaculture, an approach to land management and settlement design that adopts arrangements observed in flourishing natural ecosystems. Studies show that women play a key role in conservation and management of biodiversity and are playing a major role towards mitigation against the risks related to climate change and its effects, and the greatest responsibility over the future belongs to those that care most about it. Chichi Josephine, TV47.
Well, Chichi Josephine, thank you for that update there. And of course, matters climate change remain close to our hearts, even as we look forward to the Africa Climate Summit and Africa Climate Week that is upcoming on the 4th and 6th of September. Next week, as the conversation on matters climate change mitigation continues, not only in Kenya, but also across the African nation. That, of course, summit, we expect more than 30,000 people to congregate at the Kenya International Convention Center, Kenyatta International Convention Center, that is, to have those discussions on how better Africa can be better ready to mitigate the effects of climate change. But right now, time now to know what we expect from the newsrooms with Josh Onsara here. Okay, he'll be joining us in a little bit. But just an update on what is going on is that the committee on the ad hoc committee that is to probe on matters WorldCoin in the National Assembly is to continue with the probe today, that is to find out the investigations concerning that whole WorldCoin saga, even as they say now more than 350,000 people registered with WorldCoin, but they're yet actually to receive that money. And also in the Senate Committee on Labor and Social Welfare will be meeting today to meet the petitioners and Director of First Choice Recruitment and Consultancy Agency Limited on the petition that is the whole conversation concerning the Finland saga. And away from that, there's also the CS Education is slated to appear before the National Senate and National Cohesion Committee to deliberate on the status of 9 schools burnt over dispute in the Rakanidi at 11 a.m. today in County Hall. But remember, there was a question of the day today where we were asking you your feedback or your thoughts, opinions concerning the new police uniform that was unveiled yesterday for public to give their views concerning that. And I'm just looking at some of the feedback from Facebook here. And Chilo was saying, our problem as a country is not police uniform, but police reforms. What they ought to stand for, they always do an amazing job. And someone else, yes, says this is a loophole to use to meddle with the taxpayers' money. Away from that, just trying to, okay. Alfred Cheriot, we are paying tax to get payment. Why even now? Then changing of uniforms for what? Increase salary for police, not changing uniforms. Nothing, George Mbote says, nothing to comment about because we are used to such initiatives to siphon cash. We can manage the uniform, but we can't afford the urgently machine needed at the Nyayo House. As the CS stated, the government is not in a position to purchase but can hire from a private entity. And still the same government calling for public participation on matters of uniform changing will still remain in Kenya to kivumilia. That is just some of the comments from Kenyans there on Facebook concerning the recent unveiling of the police uniform. But of course, keep on interacting with us at TV47 News on X, at TV47 Kenya on Facebook. The hashtag this morning is a Morning Cafe. And let me now interact with Josh on Sare. Josh, hujambo?
Si jambo, habari za asubuhi.
Nzuri kabisa.
Ndio.
What do you expect from the newsroom today?
Kuna mambo mengi ambayo tunayatarajia, na kwa faida ya mtazamaji wetu umezungumzia mambo ya Worldcoin. Ni kizungumkuti ambacho kimekuwepo, na tumeweza kuona ile kamati maalum ya bunge ikichunguza kujua ni vipi kampuni hii iliweza kuingia humu nchini na kuanza shughuli zake. Ni taarifa ambayo tunaitupia jicho na itakuwa inafanyika katika bunge la kitaifa. So hivyo kumaanisha kwamba kuna mengi ambayo tunayatarajia katika taarifa zetu zijazo. Na vile vile kuna taarifa ambayo pia umeizungumzia Mathe Wangara. Ikumbuke kwamba siku ya Jumatatu ambaye anafahamika kama Nancy Kigunzu ambaye ni Mathe Wangara alizirai akiwa mahakamani, na kesi hiyo ikaweza kusitishwa, ikaahirishwa hadi leo. Tutakuwa tunatarajia kama ataachiliwa kwa dhamana au baada ataendelea kuzuiliwa.
Alizuiliwa hata baada ya kuzirai?
Alipelekwa hospitalini. Na pia usisahau kwamba Flora, kwamba kuna yule mwingine ambaye alikuwa anaitwa Teresia Wanjiru ambaye alikamatwa mwanzoni, ambaye akidhaniwa kuwa ndio Mathe Wangara. Na pia tutakuwa tunajua hatima yake vile vile. Ndio. Na vile vile kuna taarifa ya kukabiliana na uraibu wa mihadarati. Mkewe naibu rais Dorcas Rigathi yuko katika kaunti ya Mombasa, atakuwa anafanya hamasisho na jamii kwa jumla ili kuweza kupiga vita pombe haramu, vile vile mihadarati kwa jumla, na namna ya kukabili uraibu. Ikumbukwe kwamba vijana wengi sana wamejitosa katika masuala haya ya utumiaji wa mihadarati na kuweza kuathiri namna maisha yao yanavyoendelea. Vile vile Flora, tunaangazia usajili wa makurutu, umelizungumzia jana. Watu wawili walikamatwa katika eneo la Malindi kuhusiana na ile hongo ya shilingi 1250. Kumaanisha ni mambo ambayo yapo, na sisi hapa ndani tutatupa macho kwenye maeneo mbalimbali. Kaunti 47 tutanasa na tutapeperusha, si ndio? Then kuna makovu ya shambulio la 1998. Kumbuka mwaka 1998 kulikuwa na ile shambulio. 1998. Ndio. Nikumbuke kwamba kulikuwa na ile shambulio ambalo lilifanyika katika ubalozi wa Marekani. Tuliweza kuona kwamba kuna Wakenya wengi sana, zaidi ya 200 waliweza kufariki. Na hivi sasa kuna kamati maalum ya Seneti ambayo hivi sasa inachunguza na kuweza kutaka wale Wakenya ambao wale ni waasiriwa waweze kufidiwa na serikali ya Amerika. Kumaanisha bado hawajapata fidia yao na lazima waipate. Ndio maana kuna hiyo kamati, na waziri wa masuala ya kigeni Daktari Alfred Mutua atakuwa anafika mbele ya kamati hiyo kueleza serikali imeweka mikakati ipi kuhakikisha wale ambao ni waasiriwa wamepata haki. Ndio. Naam.
Mbali na hayo,
mengi yako
kuhusu sare mpya ya polisi.
Nimeona zilikuwa zimeweza kutolewa hapo jana, zilizinduliwa hapo jana. Na kikubwa hivi sasa tunasubiri tu maoni ya Wakenya. Ni zoezi ambalo linafanyika chini ya wiki moja, na hapo ndo tutajua sare mpya itakuwa gani. Ikumbuke kwamba kumekuwa na mambo mengi sana. Ikumbuke katika serikali iliyopita chini ya waziri wa masuala ya ndani ambaye alikuwa Daktari Fred Matiang'i, waliweza kutoa ile samawati iliyokolea na ikatoa hisia mseto. Wengine ukasikia wakisema kwamba hii haifichi polisi. Unaona? Sasa tutakuwa pia tunatarajia kuona hii ambayo inazinduliwa, hii ambayo itachaguliwa, itapendekezwa na Wakenya wengi ni gani, na pia tutakuwa pia tunaangalia mwafaka wake. Na usisahau kwamba mambo mengi yatajitokeza kwa sababu hivi sasa kuna wale ambao wanasema kwamba hii kandarasi imeanza mtu ameshapata kandarasi. Kumaanisha ni mambo ambayo yanafanyika. tutakuwa tunaangalia tujue ni kipi kinaajiri. Na kuna taarifa nyingi sana siku ya leo. LSK watakuwa wanatoa taarifa yao mwendo wa saa 7. Tutakuwa tunaangalia wanasemaje kuhusiana na utekelezaji wa sheria, kwa sababu wao ndio wanaangalia mambo ya sheria kwa sana kwa ushirikiano na idara ya mahakama.
Asante sana. Tunatarajia mengi kutoka kwa chumba chetu cha habari.
Ndio.
Kama ni news.
Uko sawa kabisa. Chumba chetu cha habari. Ndio.
So thank you. Keep it TV47 for all the updates of the news that are coming in throughout the day. But right now, let me have a look at what is making headlines internationally, and a story that I started with, Gabon presidential election results. The president, Ali Bongo, has won a third-term limit election with 64.27% of the vote. The Gabonese Election Center, CGE, said on Wednesday, after a delay-plagued general election that the opposition has denounced as fraudulent. Announcing the result in the early hours, CGE head Michael Stefan Bonda said that Bongo's main challenger, Albert Ondo Osa, had come in second place with 30.77%. Bongo's team have rejected Ondo Osa's allegation of the electoral irregularities this evening as Gabon soldiers announced cancellation of the election's dissolution of the institution on TV. And away from that, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi holds talks with Sudan's Army Chief Abdel Fattah Burhan in the northern coastal city of the El Alamein. Al-Burhan departed earlier on a flight to Egypt for his first trip abroad since fighting began with paramilitaries in April. Burhan has further accused the Rapid Support Forces of initiating the war. According to the Sudan Army Chief, the armed forces is committed to set a real transitional period. And elsewhere, Australia will hold a historic Indigenous rights referendum on October 14th. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, says setting up a defining moment in the nation's relationship with its Aboriginal minority. If passed, Indigenous Australians whose ancestors have lived on the continent for at least 60,000 years would be recognized in the Constitution for the first time. And they will also gain a constitutionally enshrined right to be consulted on laws that impact their communities, the so-called voice to Parliament. The historic Indigenous rights referendum will take place on October 14th. The Prime Minister Albanese said on Wednesday, setting up a defining moment in the nation's relationship with its Aboriginal minority.
Australians recognise it's time to recognise the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and doing that through a voice is the best way to do that. We're really eager for the date to be announced. You know, the campaign's already been happening, but we know when that date's announced it will ramp up exponentially, so it's going to be huge for us. So we're really looking forward to having, the end in sight and getting this done. For us, it's just the opportunity to have the conversation. There is still a large proportion of Australians who are undecided and even unaware. We know that if a yes supporter has a conversation with 3 undecided or unaware people, we can win this referendum with a resounding yes vote. But what we need to do is just mobilise and get out and be there to have those conversations on the phones, at people's doors, at markets, flying at transport hubs. You're just going to see us everywhere over the next couple of weeks.
Well, and that is what is happening across internationally, and of course that story on Gabon is a developing story, and we continue to follow it up concerning that statement by a section of military officers who have appeared before national television in Gabon to say that they have taken power after the pronouncement of Ali Bongo as the president-elect. Well?
Yes, indeed. Quite some interesting developments there in West Africa. And I was just going through the number of military takeovers that we've had from that region in the past few years. Actually, 2 of them this year. One last month in Niger, and now in Gabon. Before that, there was one in January of last year in Burkina Faso. Guinea before that. twice in Mali in 2021 and 2020, and in Chad as well. This is Central Africa. So West Africa and Central Africa, in the past 2-3 years, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 military takeovers, and it says something about the upheaval and democracy in that region.
Oh yes, even as Zimbabwe again, the opposition is saying, results are flawed.
Yes,
Kenya,
that's a different kind of democracy where at least you challenge the election results. A military takeover is something
but then
totally different.
But then again, it speaks on the volume of the maturity of democracy in East Africa. Well, okay, Uganda is a little tricky on its democracy, but again,
they do have elections as well.
But then
I've seen people making very funny jokes that that blessing in Gabon should have happened somewhere in a certain country in East Africa.
It is not anything you wish anywhere close to you, believe you me. A military takeover is not something we can welcome in this region.
Because again, even the president, who has now in the third term in Gabon, has been in power for 14 years.
Yes, and previously the dad was there for 42 years. So this is a family that has been at the helm of the power for more than 50 years.
56 years.
Yeah,
56
people
years.
must be tired.
Kainerugaba is looking at this and he's saying, Dad, live with it.
Well, and that is how we wrap up at this edition of Morning Cafe. Of course, we'll keep updating you on all this developing stories and other news in our subsequent bulletins throughout the day. So don't change that dial. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. Let's do this again tomorrow morning.
And I'm Flora Limuki. Have a lovely day and remember to do your best today.
All right. And there's a very interesting quote that Wambui actually said, and I'm looking for it. Speaking of matters, here it is. It's not how many times you fall, it is what you do to pick yourself. And out of the whole conversation,